Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, CyberSaint's Approach to Cyber Risk Management. My name is Ethan Bresnahan. I'm the Marketing Director here at CyberSaint, and today I am excited to welcome Chief Product Officer Padraic O'Reilly and Director of Sales Engineering Bob Delphin. We're so glad that you can join us, and especially want to welcome any attendees of this year's Stronger conference. Feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, and with that, I will hand things off to Padraic.
Thank you, Ethan, and thanks, Bob, for joining and presenting. I'll just preface things by saying, that I started the company with another founder 6 years ago, and we've been on a journey. I was on a call earlier today, and I called it an evolution. And I think you could arguably say that the industry has also been evolving over time with respect to risk management. 6 years ago, we got in and we thought the play was rather simple. It was to get people off of spreadsheets and to get them benchmarking themselves and measuring their maturity or scores on certain regulatory frameworks. But it quickly became very apparent that companies were either understaffed, overwhelmed, that risk management was a big part of this, and that the data on well-known frameworks like DFARS, the CSF, 853, ISO, HIPAA, PCI, was being leveraged in other contexts across other teams. So we began to build the product to adapt to that. And that's when automation and the risk register were top of mind. It took us some time to build the components, but now we've arrived at the point where integrated risk management, GRC sort of spun off integrated risk management, and integrated risk management, I think, really didn't get as much purchase. But what is getting a great deal of purchase, and what is something we've always been doing, is cyber risk management. It's top of mind now across all of the sectors, critical infrastructure sectors in the United States. It's top of mind in Europe as well, and their essential services. And we have been very fortunate in that we've been pulled into the conversation writ large by some of the greatest partners in the world. So we've had the opportunity over the last year to work with Booz Allen Hamilton on their risk models for cyber. We've put the FAIR model into system. We've worked with NIST's 830 series model as well. And it's all sort of dovetailing now. And what we're seeing across industry is a need to have good, actionable data in risk management, to have that relate across the practice. So that relates to control frameworks, and to automate the data that's coming into system. One of the beautiful things that happened recently was that we were able to begin working with a data company and actually get some idea around what the actual loss events look like. When we put the risk register in years ago, I had many conversations with enterprise companies, and they would ask me, what do you think the likelihood is? I might have some idea, but it's not defensible. What do you think the average loss event looks like? Well, now we have a data set that's about a million rows, and it collapses to about 140,000 events. So we're driving that additionally over our risk models as well, which is going to be very, very powerful. So I will start asking Bob to open the product. I think, Bob, we might start on the home dashboard. And I'll have you talk a little bit about just, our early approach to frameworks and to controls. And I'll pipe in as
You bet. Thanks, Patty. One of the biggest things that when Patty was talking about the evolution of CyberSaint and where we've come from, right? The challenge we had is, what do we want to standardize on? And it became fairly evident for us when we started about 6-7 years ago, is we wanted to base it off of the NIST CSF. It's really easy to have those conversations and talk about, how do you frame your environment and how do you visualize your environment? So it's easy to have conversations with looking at a framework and talking about it, identify, detect, protect, recover, and respond. It becomes very challenging when you start looking at control family scores with all of the frameworks that are out there. be it custom frameworks or frameworks that are coming from governing bodies. And what we've done is we've taken all of these informative references and mapped it back to the CSF so that anybody in upper management or wherever you stand in the realm of cyber risk is that you're able to visualize where you are at for your target scores, where you're at today and what your current score will be. So you get a quick visualization. Today in system, I think we have well over 80 different frameworks, and this covers the globe. So depending on where you're at, we have a ton of North American frameworks, but we also have frameworks from EMEA to Oceania to Asia Pac. So we're globally handling customers all over the world, and it gives them the ability to, you'll hear this from us, is to centralize, standardize, and automate that environment.
Yeah,
Do you want to interject anything, Patty?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I do. So maybe dip into the controls there, Bob. And one of the nice things, sometimes you hear, compliance isn't security, security isn't compliance. That's true, but what often doesn't get discussed is compliance is a component of it, right? It's not, you don't throw compliance out and say, we don't have to be compliant, we just have to be secure. So sometimes I think that's what philosophers would call a false antinomy or a false duality. There's a lot of good data on control frameworks. There's a lot of very powerful control frameworks out there. We work very closely with the NIST standards. We're big believers in that. Bob is showing a control here, AC2. It's a famous control, account management. It's got upwards of 15 line items. But what I really want to stress here is that our legacy approach, which was to have human input, we're now moving towards actually automating controls. So we have automated the cloud service providers. We're automating scanning products. We're automating, Active Directory, and it's a journey we're on to automate as much as possible. Bob's showing Azure. Azure has policies that map to the individual actions within a control, not just to the control writ large, but to the specific line items on the control. So we do that analysis where it doesn't exist. It exists in AWS. It exists in IBM, but in Azure, we had to actually do the additional mappings. So you can see here, we're running a check on a certain cadence, and then you have an idea of what your posture is. We can do this across the entire implementation in Azure, or do it with respect to the resource groups. Scope is all important, as we all know. So, Bob, if you would now maybe go over to the risk register.
You bet. One final.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead, Patty. I was going to say, one final point. We're going to step on each other, but I'll finish my thought here. One of the final things I want you to think about is there's all of this integration components. We make it actionable. So we'll automatically score those policies that you see inside of Azure or inside of a tech stack. So we take that automation piece to the next level. So apologize, Patty. There is a delay.
No, that's quite all right. We're working with a delay. It's like we're television MCs, and we have to wait a beat when we ask each other a question. So I just wanted to tie this immediately into risk. I think because the big picture here is that cyber risk management has been on a journey. It's been on a journey because it's come out of IT, it's come out of the old days of information security, and it's had a bit of an issue translating the practice itself upstairs, rationalizing the practice upstairs, making a case for, the business case for certain security implementations upstairs. What is our risk exposure? What do we want to accept as a risk? What do we want to transfer? What do we want to avoid? And given those options, how do we make the best cost-based argument to invest in cyber? The SEC has come out recently and been very clear that investors in companies have a right to know what the approach on cyber risk management is. Good cyber risk management is actually business plus. It's a value add in a very large way for a corporation, and that is now front of mind, I think, for most executives. That the way they practice cyber, the way they practice cyber risk management can add can add real value to the company. So I just want to tie the automation story to the risk register. You can see here on the left, pretty standard heat mapping, financial impact on risks to the right. We have now a data set that can help to inform some of that, and then a line itemized list of some of your bigger adversarial risks here. Bob, you might want to click into one. And here you have a story you can begin to tell and socialize around a third-party software vulnerability. You have the risk that has been remediated in green. You have a time series, importantly, over the risk. You have the controls that are associated with the risk, and that's all important, the security groups that mitigate said risk, and how they're trending over time. This helps you to build the case around what we can do to continue to mitigate this risk and how the controls have been performing over time. And when you're automating those controls, you will have this risk updating in real time. So really, in a sense, the old way of approaching risk assessment is coming to an end. It's no longer 6 months retrospective, 3 months retrospective, predicated upon garbage data. When you are automating the information that's coming in and feeding into the risk calculation, you're getting a real-time approximation of where your actual posture is. Just wanted to stress that and show that across a few models. So, Bob, let's maybe move over to the FAIR model. One of the great things about the FAIR model is that NIST has begun working with it, and the Department of Energy began socializing it a few years ago. I began working with it years ago, put it into R&D. We now have a brilliant R&D team who's built out a very effective service. But one of the brilliant things about the FAIR model is that it is custom built to receive data. The way that you look at loss event frequency and loss magnitude, those two sets of fields are custom built for probabilistic analysis. So you can take historical data and inform the FAIR model quite directly. So Bob, maybe let's check into one of the particular calculations here. So here we have an average loss value for a third-party software vulnerability. This is driven by actual data that we've pulled across Ponymon, Symantec, and Advisen. The data sets now we're using to build out actual presets. So you will be able to enter the sector that you are in and your company size by revenue and by employee count. And we will return values. If you scroll down a little bit here, we'll return the curves almost instantaneously. And that's a Monte Carlo simulation. So it's 10,000 runs. The basic idea here on FAIR is, what is my loss exposure probabilistically? If 50% of the time over a year, I will have a loss probability of an exposure of greater than the value you see right underneath there, which I think is 250K. It's a simple but powerful way to make a financial case around certain risk exposures like ransomware, phishing, insider threat, data breach, and the rest. Bob, maybe press recalculate so I could talk a little bit about how we are going to automate the fields. As it stands now, customers can enter their own data. That data doesn't tend to be quite as good as they would like. Conversations across enterprise and commercial for myself for years now has been, we really don't have a great idea. The data set we have now will give you a very good idea of what the loss event frequency, just scroll down to the input fields there, Bob, for loss event frequency.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, on reevaluate. Yeah, so here's where the magic is going to happen, right? What is the probability of a loss event in a given year? You've got a min, a max, and a most likely. That's really just a distribution. And then again, for loss magnitude, we've got 1 million loss events, across 20 sectors. We've got company sizes. We've got the data can be sliced by revenue. So we can actually auto-populate these fields. Customers can do it now. They can change the fields. But effectively, what we're going to be doing is with 12 basic cyber risks, we're going to be allowing companies to enter their data and then obtain the best statistical analysis of their loss exposure that is currently available in the market. And I say that with no hesitation whatsoever. And in addition, it's not going to be some sort of voodoo score that we point at a closed room and say we've got 10 PhDs in there sort of cranking it out. You will actually be able to see how we come up with this score. The methodology is clear, it's defensible, and it's something you can walk upstairs with confidence. Bob, do you have any comments?
No. That's exactly it. I mean, we want to make it really easy because I mean, the comments I've heard when I've demonstrated the FAIR model is it's taken a lot of time to be able to develop your results. I mean, you can see how quickly, as I add the information, how much easy it is to be able to administer the FAIR risk model and give visibility to upper management. So I'm just going to add this evaluation because I've made some number changes, and you'll be able to see how quickly it's created this third graph here. So you can see where the baseline is here and the different dates. I ran one here for today. I just ran this one. You can see it's highlighted. So as you quickly run your scenarios, it's fairly easy to use. And I always want to think about the easy button when our customers are trying to get results as quickly as they can.
That's right. Yeah. And there's nothing terribly mysterious about a Monte Carlo simulation. It's just 10,000 rolls of a dice in a sense. And it computationally can be done quite quickly. And it gives you a distribution. That's really all there is to it. The associated controls underneath, this is how you can rationalize your security program. You can indicate, that these are the most important for mitigating this risk. There are areas of, continued investment and advancing the maturity of the associated controls is the way to continue mitigating the actual risk. So as you advance the controls, you can actually deprecate the risk. So, on the reevaluate, we actually provide a historical record of how the controls have performed over time. That can be part of the return on security investment argument that one makes to the business side. All right, Bob, maybe we can go to our last and one of our most interesting risk models. So this is a risk model that came to us through Booz Allen Hamilton, a very valued and trusted partner for us. They came to us looking for a way to make their delivery around cyber risk management much more efficient. They were struggling, as many organizations do, with staff on this issue. When you get bright young things out of college and graduate school, and you hand them a spreadsheet and send them on the road, they tend to get fatigued. It happens to all of us, right? In information security, we spend some time with a spreadsheet and we find that we can't see straight. We stumble around to go make a coffee because we've been staring at endless rows and columns. So here, what we've done with Booz Allen Hamilton is essentially formalize their model. And the metrics that come out of it are fantastic. And they're really the predicate or the necessary precondition for having that conversation upstairs. This is an operational dashboard. So you're going to see your NIST CSF control maturity and its trend. So the current and target, and you see sort of a trend swoop there as well. And then the overall risk level. And the risk here is really scenario-based analysis, which is uniquely powerful. Scenario-based analysis is very powerful because it essentially says, what do we think our top exposures might be? And if we were to answer a set of questions around these exposures, what do we think we're going to see? And that helps us to prioritize the resource. So, Bob, maybe click into the lower level as well, the other dashboard on this. I think it's up top there, yeah, just scenarios. So now you can see, you can analyze by scenarios here. So this is a way to have the conversation. You say upstairs, we think cloud misconfiguration might be an issue. There's a lot of complexity in the cloud. We have to be on top of that. Cyber extortion, obviously ransomware. This is what we think our exposure is. And we want to get it to a target, of 0.89 there. Data, malicious breach, malicious insider, network, website disruption. These are all scenarios that one can socialize and begin to drive the conversation around how do we mitigate these risks. Maybe drill in on the left there a little more into the individual one, Bob. So click into any of those on the left. Yep. And here you can see some heat mapping with current to target, risk score in a little more granular, and then the CSF scores for current to target as well. And you can drill into those also. So these are really a series of visualizations that can be very powerful to drive the conversation around what we think our top risk exposures are. How do we get these analyses? We have a very powerful compute engine on the Booz Allen side that is associated with this model. Bob, maybe click into the actual questionnaire as well, just to show a little bit of behind the curtain on how we get some of this data. So here we've basically taken this quantitative model and made it qualitative up front. And this is by design. Booz Allen, this represents their process when they go into a particular type of client. So you can see here that they've decomposed a sort of probabilistic model into these fields: organization size, attack action, and other fields. And you really just answer a simple set of questions. So this is, designed to be used by human beings. It's designed to be an interaction. So maybe advance through there, Bob, a little more. Now we're looking at the actual probability, which is a set of inputs as well. And then profiling the attackers as well. And analyzing the vulnerability. So the impact as well. So really what you have is a series of vectors. This model is very consistent with FAIR. It's basically a FAIR variant, but it's also contains a set of vectors that you will see in NIST's risk models as well. So it's really best of class risk modeling. And we're very, very excited to be working with Booz Allen Hamilton on this. And their clients are already using a model like this, but at the same time, they want to be able to offer the power of this analysis, as we do, to clients outside of their current client base. So we're very excited about that as well. The future of risk management in cyber really revolves around, what do we tell the C-suite and the board? How do we tell them what our risk exposures are and what our opportunities to efficiently and cost effectively mitigate those exposures are? This is really the big story. So right now, one of the things we are building on the back of all of our dashboards is the executive dashboard. And what will the executive dashboard do? Well, effectively, what it's going to do is allow executives to view cyber through an intuitive lens. They're going to be able to see the CSF maturity, but without too much granularity. They're going to be able to see some benchmarking, in that they're going to be able to see the last 10 big attack by types. So they're going to be able to see how the company and the information security professionals, the CISO and the others, are talking about risk. They're going to be able to see what's out there in the wild. They're going to be able to see their maturity over time, and they're going to see the top opportunities they have to actually mitigate, accept, avoid, or transfer said risk. This is going to be driven by real input from professionals inside the company, but it's also augmented by data outside the company as well. So the conversation is advancing. I think the conversation in cyber risk management has become very focused this year. In our discussions with CISOs, there's been great back and forth, and we're settling really upon a series of visualizations and analyses that will be best in class and allow companies to quickly and efficiently understand their risk exposures, and to use it and to justify that with real data, and to have a series of discussions around how those risks can be mitigated in the most cost-effective manner. That is going to serve as a set of artifacts for some of the things that the federal government is asking for as well. So you have a demonstrable program around cyber risk management, and it's a powerful one that can help you spot the true exposures you have, the size of those exposures, and the opportunity to mitigate those exposures as well. Bob, do you have anything to add?
No, I think this, the value add of this Booz Allen Hamilton risk register is it gets very granular, right? If you've seen the iterations, we're totally agnostic to the type of risk environments that you're looking for, going from 830 to FAIR to the Booz Allen Hamilton model. Uh, there's been a lot of thought. This has been a lot of years that has been put into this, and the specifics of the questions on how granular it gets, it really peels it back and gives you a more precise view of what your risk are and what your exposures may be going forward.
Absolutely. And I've been doing this long enough now that I know that this, 3 or 4 years ago, my conversations with enterprise would be, wouldn't it be nice if we could eventually automate, all of the or a good portion of the requirements and controls we have, and then associate that with risk, as best practice does. I mean, best practice with respect to risk is to always point back to actual practices, and practices, procedures, and technologies, which is what controls in the best possible sense represent, and it's that data. So as you're pulling in the automated data, you have the risk models actually receiving that data on a cadence and recalculating the risk live and on the fly. That has really been the holy grail of risk management for quite some time now, and we are really on the cusp of it at the moment. So with that, Bob, do you want to maybe discuss any additional aspects of our approach, or
Yeah, for sure, Patty. One of the biggest things as you see the evolution of what our platform is doing, and as we grow, it's giving the ability to have conversations that you gather the data for information that you can present to upper management. That makes the decisions much easier because now you're not gapped where you're gathering the information.
right?
The information is in real time, like Patty, you had alluded to it early on in the conversation. Is it's not 6 months and then you wait for it. We're more of a proactive platform. If you're making changes on the fly, the documents are living and breathing. The information that you see as it gets presented, as it gets updated, the notifications can happen in real time. You don't have to wait 365 days. You don't have to wait 6 months. You can be more of a proactive environment. So you get the statistics, you get the information. We give you the ability and visibility. It doesn't matter what size of a company you are. You can be 1,000. You can be 100-person company. You can be a 50,000-person company. We give you that flexibility. We can go from a startup company to an enterprise company and anything in between to give you that visibility. It's about taking that journey with CyberSaint. You'll hear this from me a lot. It's the crawl, walk, run. Where are you at in your journey? Because as you start to mature, we give you a lot of the tools in the platform to be able for you to start maturing and growing from that. From a simple heat map up to the right, you got to worry about that today because that's all you want to focus in on. Going to the fair model, right? Now you want to look at it financially. And then with the Booz Allen Hamilton, it's that hybrid. Not only is it that hybrid, but it gets very granular. It asks you specific questions so that you really get to see what your risk exposure is depending on where the threats are coming from. Maybe it's coming from some part of the world that you really don't need to worry about, but that's what you're feeling that the threats are coming from. So those are where the threat actors are at. You get that visibility, you get that granular point of view, you get that visibility. And then now you get to see that there is this mix. It's not just a single risk environment. It's depending on where you are at with your maturity, you can come in and grow inside of the platform and scale. Take your data, move it along, go from 830 to a fair model to the Booz Allen hybrid model. It becomes super powerful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to give just the participants on the call a taste of where we're headed, it's about more data, and partnerships with Snowflake. They are a data lake, a very well known one. And what we're effectively doing in there is aggregating all of the security data in one place so that we can automate even more effectively across controls. partners like IBM, where we're taking, cloud postures and allowing, major institutions to benchmark their cyber risk program. So it's a very exciting time for us as a company, because we have built the infrastructure, in a sense, to do cyber risk management and to do it credibly across many models and transparently. And now we're taking more and more data, and through our partnerships, we're driving more and more data across these models, which is going to help refine them and make them more accurate. I'm also very excited because I've had conversations for years with major corporations where they say to me, well, where is the data? Where is it? Can you get it? Can you show it to me? We now can do that. We have the data and we can show it to the customers. And that's a very powerful thing to do, because it's not a matter of guessing anymore. Now it's a matter of approximating and getting better and better approximations of risk, which is quite powerful. And we're now in an environment really where you cannot afford to not be doing this. This is a mandate across many of the sectors in our economy, and it's coming to a theater near you as well, if it isn't currently mandated.
Yeah, just to follow on that thought, Patty. I mean, the biggest things, especially if you're in a heavily regulated industry vertical, as you start to grow and mature, I'm sure that's what everybody's dream is, to get bigger and better. You need to make sure that you're being held accountable and being able to prove your point to whoever's you're being audited by or being managed by. In financial institutions, as you go from 1 million to 100 million to a billion to 10 billion, the regulations become more stringent. With a platform like what CyberSaint has to offer for you, is you can mature and growth. The solution allows you to scale and become still a standard for your centralized standardizing and automating of the information that you have. I want you to keep in mind, when we talk about automation, we're making it actionable, right? It's the continuous control automation part. We're making everything actionable. I shouldn't say everything. We're making a lot of things actionable, so that the telemetry stack, we can automate that piece. You're still going to have to intervene for human actions, your policies, and your people, but from the technical aspect, we're going to help lighten that load for you and create that automation component.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to turn to a question in a second. And I just want to add one more thing. And that is that, there are companies that are dipping their toe into risk management, cyber risk management. They certainly are working with frameworks. They're certainly working with standards. They're working with requirements. They might be selling into the federal government. They might be working with CMMC. But the risk management program might not be terribly mature. One of the things, and when I've talked to Gartner about companies that are sort of mid-sized, beginning risk management, they want to work with probabilistic models like the FAIR model, but they don't really know where to start. And one of the things that Presets is going to do for us is allow us to bring a very powerful analysis to companies like that, to companies that already have some data on known frameworks, that are already working inside control frameworks. We're going to be able to offer them, with just answering a few questions, an understanding of what their risk exposure looks like. That's really going to help these companies better manage their risk and better manage their expenditures around how they mitigate the risk. So I'm very excited to see that. The enterprise side has certainly been driving a lot of the functionality, but we've been mindful that it's also going to help with adoption, in mid-sized companies and smaller companies as well, that are maybe a slightly lower maturity with respect to cyber risk management.
Amazing. Thank you both, Bob and Padraic, for the introduction here. We did actually get a question from the audience, and we start to wrap up here. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to submit them. Question reads, I always love Padraic's presentations. What is the practical floor for an organization to adopt CyberSaint? We are an MSP and I would like to use the tool across our clients, but I cannot do that if it is only priced for enterprise. I'll take this one first, and then
Ethan, you take a crack.
Patrick, feel free to jump in. We actually do have quite a collection of MSPs using the CyberSaint platforms. So definitely reach out, info@CyberSaint if you'd like to learn more. And we also actually hosted a webinar just recently with one of our oldest MSP partners, Bernard Bach over at Sysarc. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the impact on his business, the contrast kind of pre-post CyberSaint implementation is pretty striking in that webinar. So highly encourage you to take a look. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I do.
Either of you?
I do, Ethan. I just want to say that MSPs have been some of our most valuable customers. You know, that I've been working with a handful of them for years now, and they have been so valuable that I've promoted, you know, MSPs to the advisory board inside us. I would say that I understand the pricing is slightly different because it's service based, but we're mindful of that, and we have been mindful of that with our MSPs. We don't. We work with each individual company to come up with a model of pricing that you know, suits their practice. You know, working with enterprise, working with commercial, working with MSPs, there's a lot of flexibility. I think, you know, you'll find, you know, when it comes to the business side for us around that conversation.
Absolutely. So definitely reach out. We'd love to have a conversation about that. I think that about wraps it up for questions here. So we'll wrap it up here. Bob, Padraic, any parting thoughts from either of you?
Just that it's an exciting time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cyber risk management has, I think, finally grown up, and in some ways, I think all of us in the industry know what it is, and we can agree as to what needs to be done. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be a part of that conversation. And all the professionals I've dealt with along the way, of those of you who are on the call, I just want to extend my thanks and my appreciation to you, because it's taken a village, and it's taken quite some time as well.
Absolutely. Bob, any parting thoughts from you?
No, Patty's nailed it, right? This is an exciting time, and I think you know, the world is pivoting, and you know, I think we're right there on the cusp of just making things happen. I always say, if I can make it easy for everybody in the world, you know, that's my end goal.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate everybody who has taken the time to watch this introduction to CyberSaint and the CyberStrong platform. If you are interested in learning more, feel free to reach out, info@cybersaint.io, or visit us at cybersaint.io. Bob, Padraic, until next time, we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.